Hello there. Currently in Project Zomboid, there are 4 major spawn locations that you will typically spawn in. And well, these are kind of a big deal. Where you spawn will dictate your strategy for your playthrough and generally impact how you play. The question is, which one is right for you? Today we're going through each of them, walking through their strengths and weaknesses, at least in my opinion, and seeing which one will be your preferred choice for your next playthrough. Anyway, let us begin. Starting off with Rosewood. Rosewood has always been touted as one of, if not the easiest place to spawn in, making it great if you are still learning the game. It has the smallest zombie population due to its small size as a town, and you have the potential to spawn in some really great buildings. I'd say it's designed for the easiest start in the game, and for good reason. It has some interesting buildings, like the Rosewood Fire Station, the construction site, the prison is also located here, and more. Even with it being, in my opinion, the easiest start in Project Zomboid, Rosewood does present its own set of challenges. The biggest one is that you tend to outgrow this town rather quickly. It's the smallest layout of all the spawns, and once you've looted all the main points of interest, you're kind of left with nothing much else to do. So you will inevitably have to move out of town soon to head to the other locations. The other challenge that Rosewood presents is that it's the furthest from all the other locations on the map, which may or may not be an issue depending on how you see it. I mean, March Ridge is just a short drive away, but going there is pretty meh without the annotated map that will turn the dormitory complex into a loot goblin's paradise. Personally, I've never stayed in Rosewood for longer than a week or two before heading out, but that's just me. Overall, it's pretty safe, and it was one of my favorite spawns for a very long time. The fire station will give you a bunch of loot that will give you a massive head start in the early game. Our next one is Muldraugh. Muldraugh. What can I say? It is an average location and sort of the natural step up in difficulty in terms of the spawns. As far as spawning locations go, it's alright in my opinion. There's nothing crazy to write home about and nothing blatantly bad about it. It's right in the middle of the map, so all the other locations are fairly accessible from it. Okay, maybe not Riverside, that one is pretty far. In terms of zombie spawns, I'd say it's around average, but still more than enough to give you a challenge. Spawning here if you are unprepared can still give you a tough time, but it's more than manageable. For some reason, I've died here more than when I spawned in WestPoint. Go figure. The loot here isn't bad, but it's all generally located on the main highway coming through town, and this is where all the Zeds are concentrated, which makes looting a fun time, so you're gonna have to get rather creative. Otherwise, you'll be joining that crowd much sooner than you need to. It's got some really nice base locations like the farmhouse, McCoy's, and more, topped off with a VHS store which can seriously skyrocket your early game skill learning. All in all, it's worth a consideration if you're looking to step up your early game start difficulty. Next up is Riverside. Riverside is almost like mushing WestPoint and Muldraugh together with a sprinkling of Rosewood's general difficulty. One of the easiest spawns when compared to Muldraugh or WestPoint, Riverside gives you direct access to the river for water and fishing, which already sets you up to essentially survive indefinitely. Zombie population isn't too bad at all, and you have some pretty decent locations to loot as well as some really solid spots to set up a base. Unlike Rosewood, you have a VHS store here, which is a huge plus for the early to mid game. The only downside of Riverside, at least in my opinion, is that it is hella far away from the rest of the map. With Riverside, you could essentially never leave if that's your preference, but if you want better loot, you're gonna have to venture out at some point. Personally, I love Riverside. It ticks a lot of boxes, and if you're still learning the game or even a veteran, Riverside has got you covered as a good all-rounder spawn location. Last but not least is WestPoint. WestPoint, in my humble opinion, is among the best, if not the best, option for a spawn location. Granted, it's gonna be a rough ride if you're a newer player and you will die many times. Hell, even veterans have a tough time out here, but once you get your feet wet, WestPoint has got a lot going for it as a location. It's a high-risk, high-reward town. You trade off the highest initial spawn population for some really high-grade loot. I mean, it has its own gun store which should tell you everything that you need to know. Besides, spawning here means you get to clear out one of the most dangerous towns ahead of time before the zombie population becomes too much to handle. If you manage to find a place to settle down in here, you will have places like a hardware store, storage units, the gun store I mentioned earlier, and a nice big warehouse slightly out of the main part of town that you can loot. And you will be set for quite a while until you either decide to move on or stay in WestPoint. The choice is obviously yours. And the main reason why I love WestPoint so much is because of how close it is to Louisville, or Louisville, as someone said it was pronounced, but I don't know, man, I just work here. So yeah, WestPoint for the win. That's it for the spawn locations. These are my opinions, and of course they may differ from yours. Which one of these are your favorites to spawn in? If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and subscribe. Oh, and do not forget to join the Discord if you haven't already. Good luck out there, Survivor, and I will see you in the next one.